To start off this media project, our group decided to use the topic of drugs, and specifically marijuana. There are many questions to be asked when it comes to marijuana, such as, is marijuana really a gateway drug nowadays? Why is it legal in some states, but not in all? Why is it not legalized in Virginia yet? What are the effects that marijuana has on different people? And lastly, what are the benefits of it? The sociological theory that is being used in this is symbolic interactionism. Marijuana back then was viewed as bad, but now it is viewed as a sense of healing and is used as a remedy. During the 1900s, life was a little different than it is now with the way that drugs are being used in everyone's day-to-day lives. More people nowadays tend to use the drugs as an escape from the crazy society we live in today. Back in the 1900s, marijuana was not as big of a drug as it is today. In the book Angels of Vision, How to Understand Social Problems by Leonard Beagley, he stated, about 32% of the population has used this drug at some point in their lives, 5% in the month previous to the survey that is being showed on the slide. Surprisingly enough, the survey shown on the slide was taken in 1996. Mostly during the 19th century, marijuana was used for medical purposes. Lots of people have found new ways to use the marijuana to get them to feel high, and these ways are still used in today's society. An example would be putting the fluid extract into different candies and eating them. This is just one of the many ways that people choose to use this drug. Marijuana as of today has been legalized in 11 states plus the District of Columbia, and most states are still in the process of having marijuana legalized. Having marijuana legalized in all states will help reduce the acts of violence throughout the states. It will help create job opportunities for many people and will help save money that is being used for court costs. If marijuana were to be legalized in all states, there would also be a reduced amount of people incarcerated, which improves the amount of space in jail or prison facilities. Having citizens put into jail facilities for offenses as small as the possession of marijuana makes tax go up for innocent people.
Americans' views on marijuana is far more accepting now than back then 30 years ago, with 66% of Americans supporting it now, compared to just 24% back in 1988. Many state laws have changed as well. Over the last quarter century, 10 states have legalized recreational marijuana, while 22 states have legalized medical marijuana. One reason that public opinion has changed on it is because of the media. Support for legalization began to increase shortly after the news media began to frame marijuana as a medical issue. Another reason that it has changed is because both younger and older people develop more liberal views about the legalization of marijuana at a similar pace over the last 30 years. Another reason that it has changed is that some people disaffiliated from religion, and there was a survey called the National Survey on Drug Use and Health that found that people who do not have a religion tend to be more liberal than others. However, this factor accounts for only a small proportion of the change. Criminal laws vary state by state for marijuana use. In the state of Virginia, for a first offense, it is a maximum penalty of 30 days in jail and a $500 fine or both. A subsequent offense is a Class 1 misdemeanor with a maximum penalty of 12 months in confinement and a $2,500 fine or both, plus the loss of driving privileges. For selling less than half an ounce of marijuana, it is considered a felony, and the maximum penalty is a year in jail and or a fine of $2,500. For transporting more than 5 pounds into the state, it is considered a felony, and the maximum penalty is 5 to 40 years in jail and or a maximum fine of $1 million. How criminal laws have affected Americans who use marijuana is that just under 500,000 annual arrests for nonviolent drug violations are for marijuana. Because the vast majority of drug arrests are for nonviolent offenses, this means that marijuana use is responsible for close to 1/2 of this country's drug problem. Furthermore, if one gets caught with it, they can lose their financial aid depending on how many times they were caught with it. There is a 3-strike rule when caught. The first time one is caught, they lose their financial aid for 1 year. The second time they are caught, they lose it for 2 years, and a third time, forever.
Cannabis, now fondly thought of by college students, cancer patients, and people unfortunate enough to have pre-existing conditions, has a curious round circle history. Many of the current drugs that are federally and globally regulated were at one point commonly used for medical, social, and utilitarian purposes in places such as China and the Americas. I mean, just take a look at the transition of perspective on drugs internationally and the causes behind the opiate crisis that occurred in China. It displays a very blatant abuse of a culture and narcotic that was once commonly used within that society. But opium is not what we're here to discuss today. Manuela Adrian from the Department of Economics at the University of Guelph in Canada reports the use of cannabis to go back as far as 5,000 years ago, and the spread of the plant to have arrived into the New World by the mid-16th century, at which time it was being utilized in ritualistic, shamanistic, religious, and medicinal uses. Taking a look at our society now, it is just beginning to shed that stigmatizing perspective on marijuana composition. So dare I ask, how did we go from using it in day-to-day activity in the 1500s to believing it to be the devil's lettuce? Well, let us explain a bit more. The picture depicted in this slide is of Magu, an ancient Taoist goddess from China whose name literally translates to hemp maid. She was frequently depicted carrying a basket of hemp and peaches and was attributed with healing the sick and needy. This is a prime example of one of the historical significances of marijuana and its healing positive qualities. Back in the early 20th century, anti-drug campaigners in America changed the symbolism of marijuana from one of healing to being linked with dangerous activities, deviant behaviors, and minority populations. Utilizing the negative label on marijuana to target immigrants and minority groups as scapegoats for issues within the nation. In response to the negative connotations that began to be associated with cannabis, it became labeled as a poison in 1906 at the state level, followed by a strict prohibition in 1920. After the DEA was established, America actually spearheaded an international attack on narcotics, resulting in worldwide restrictions on Mary Jane. During the 1960s, the hippie populations of the U.S. developed and embodied the culture of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, breaking previously established stigmas associated with cannabis. In response to this spike in deviance, the U.S. government tightened their grip on drug laws and enforcement. Despite the government's attempts to dissuade marijuana use, the culture of free love had opened Pandora's box. The population began to question and doubt the song and dance of anti-drug regimes.
The marijuana outlook has been on the rise for many years now. States have started to change the laws on marijuana since 2012, with Colorado and Washington being the first two states to legalize medicinal and recreational marijuana at the state level. The belief that caused this change in heart is using marijuana for medicinal purposes. Many doctors and pharmaceutical companies have mixed reviews on the topic. I feel that medicinal marijuana industry will soon be legal in every state. What people do not understand is that marijuana has many positive effects to it than just getting high. It has been proven that it helps relieve pain from cancer patients and patients with glaucoma. These states have started to realize that there is money in this industry, and by making it legal all the way around, can bring many economic benefits to the table by charging taxes and other fines to it, just as they would with tobacco products. But there is more money that can be made with marijuana than tobacco. It is understood that marijuana is not legalized at the federal level yet, but states can get by with it being legalized because of the revenue it brings in. The big change that is shown is the fact that people have been smart about this drug and have not abused it like some states thought they would. Medicinal marijuana has shown to be another strategy for fighting the pain in some things in the medical field than just pills being another alternative added to the list. The plan for decriminalizing and taxing marijuana is moving forward in the House and has passed days ago. But it has to go before the Senate, which is controlled by Republicans, and many feel that this is not going to pass because of the mixed emotions towards this topic. The way that I see it is that maybe down the road, 10 to 20 years from now, marijuana will be legal medicinally and recreationally at the federal level because of the amount of revenue it brings in and the effects it has for people. Yes, it may be classified as a drug, but what says the pills people take every day are not drugs? The long-term outlook for this drug is that more states will be legalizing it recreationally and medicinally with years to come, and for it to be legal all the way around for the long-term goal.